The night I shoved a billionaire off a rooftop, I thought I was saving a stranger. I had no idea I was starting a war. Rain hammered against the glass walls of the Valmont Grand Hotel hard enough to blur Manhattan into streaks of silver and gold. The rooftop ballroom smelled like champagne, expensive perfume, and money I would never touch. I balanced a tray of crystal flutes against my shoulder while weaving through women wearing diamonds bigger than my rent payment. My black heels pinched my feet with every step. 12 hours into my shift, I could barely feel my toes anymore. Table 9 needs another bottle. My manager snapped through his headset. I forced a smile and nodded even though my back ached like someone had driven nails into it. Friday nights at the Valmont always felt like theater. Rich people pretending they were happy while the rest of us pretended not to notice their secrets. I grabbed a fresh bottle of champagne and moved toward the private balcony section overlooking Fifth Avenue. That was when I saw him for the first time. Damien Valeni stood near the railing with one hand in his pocket, completely still while the entire room shifted around him. 6'3", dark suit, black tie loosened slightly at the collar. Men moved out of his path without being asked. Women lowered their voices when he looked their way. Power rolled off him quietly, the dangerous kind that never needed to announce itself. I didn't know much about New York's underworld, but everyone knew the Valeni name. Girls like me survived by minding their business. Champagne, sir. My voice came out softer than I intended. His green eyes lifted toward me slowly, like he hadn't slept properly in years. Leave it there, he said. His voice was calm enough to make my heartbeat stumble anyway. I set the bottle onto the marble table beside him. That should have been the end of it. Instead, movement flashed in the reflection behind him. A man near the ballroom doors turned too quickly, one hand hidden inside his jacket. Something metallic caught the chandelier light for half a second. Instinct moved before logic did. Get down. I slammed both hands against Damien's chest with everything I had. His eyes widened just before his body crashed backward onto the wet marble balcony floor. Then the world exploded behind us. Heat slammed across my back. Glass shattered overhead like breaking ice. Women screamed inside the ballroom. Smoke swallowed the rooftop in seconds. My ears rang so hard I could barely hear myself breathing. Damien grabbed my wrist suddenly, dragging me against the balcony wall before another burst of sparks erupted behind the bar area. His grip was firm. Stay down, he ordered. The calm in his voice terrified me more than the explosion. Men in black suits stormed onto the rooftop from every direction. Someone grabbed my shoulders and yanked me upright hard enough to make me lose balance. She touched him first. A voice shouted through the smoke. Possible threat. Before I could explain, 3 guns pointed directly at my chest. Damien rose slowly from the floor, rain soaking through his dark hair, while smoke curled behind him like shadows. His eyes locked onto mine with terrifying focus. Then his gaze dropped to my trembling hands. Burn marks spread across my skin where the blast heat had caught me. For one strange second, something shifted in his expression. Lock her up, Damien Valeni said quietly. Nobody leaves this hotel. People think fear sounds loud. They are wrong. Real fear sounds like silence after an explosion. Smoke drifted across the rooftop in slow gray waves while rain hissed against burning wires near the shattered bar. Nobody moved at first. The wealthy guests stood frozen beneath dripping chandeliers, staring at me like I had brought death into the room myself. The security guard holding my arm tightened his grip when I tried to speak. I saw someone near the doors, I managed. There was something in his hand. Damien Valeni watched me with unreadable eyes while another man adjusted an earpiece beside him. The rooftop is secure, the man said quietly. No confirmed threats remaining. Damien finally stepped closer. Rain darkened his suit jacket, outlining the powerful frame beneath expensive fabric. Up close, he smelled like smoke, cedar, and cold winter air. What is your name? Marin Bellamy. How long have you worked here? 8 months. And you expect me to believe a waitress noticed an attack before my security team did? Heat climbed into my cheeks despite the freezing rain. I did not plan anything. I snapped. I saw movement behind you and reacted. Convenient story. Damien raised one hand slightly. The guard stepped back without another word. That scared me more than the guns had. Power should not look that effortless. Damien glanced toward my burned hands again. The skin across my fingers had turned red and raw from the blast heat. I had not even noticed the pain until now. Get the medic, he said. She can explain after treatment. I do not need treatment. That was not a request. Two women in black uniforms escorted me downstairs through a private hallway hidden behind the ballroom kitchen. The noise of the gala disappeared quickly behind thick marble walls. I realized then that the hotel had secret corridors. Hidden elevators too, the kind built for people with enemies. The medic cleaned my hands inside a private suite larger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, while soft jazz played somewhere behind the walls. It felt unreal after the chaos upstairs. You are lucky, the medic murmured while wrapping gauze around my fingers. Most people never get invited into Mr. Valeni's private floor. I was dragged here by armed men. She gave me a careful look. That too. 30 minutes later, I sat alone beside the fireplace trying not to panic. My phone was gone, my purse too. Rain streaked down the windows in silver rivers while black SUVs moved below like shadows through midtown traffic. Then the suite doors opened. Damien entered without security this time. He loosened his cufflinks slowly before placing them onto the table beside me. Your manager confirmed your employment records, he said calmly. No criminal history, no suspicious financial activity, community college student. Congratulations, you investigated my entire life in under an hour. His mouth almost curved into a smile. You still could have been hired. Anger flared hot inside me. I stood too quickly, and the room tilted slightly from adrenaline exhaustion. I saved your life. Damien stepped closer immediately, steadying my elbow before I lost balance. His hand was warm despite the cold rain outside. That is what confuses me, he said quietly, not because he touched me. People usually run from me, Marin. I swallowed hard. Maybe nobody else saw what I saw. And what exactly did you see? I opened my mouth to answer, then froze. A memory flashed through my mind suddenly. The reflection in the ballroom glass. The hidden hand near the doors, and a silver ring catching the chandelier light. I had seen that same ring earlier that evening, on someone standing beside Damien himself. Oh God, I whispered. What? I looked directly at him for the first time since the explosion. The man near the doors, I said slowly. I think he was one of your people. The temperature in the room changed the second those words left my mouth. Damien did not move immediately. That was the frightening part. Most people reacted with emotion first. He reacted with calculation. Explain, he said quietly. My throat tightened under the weight of his stare. I forced myself to breathe normally. The man near the ballroom doors wore a silver ring with a black stone, I said. I saw it before the explosion. Damien remained perfectly still beside the fireplace. Where? Near the elevators earlier tonight, barely noticeable. Who was wearing it? I searched my memory hard enough to make my temples ache. Guests blurred together in my head. Expensive suits, forced laughter. The older man beside you during the auction speech, I whispered. Gray hair, navy tie. Something cold flickered behind Damien's eyes, not surprise. He crossed the room slowly and poured himself a glass of whiskey from the crystal cart near the windows. Rain tapped softly against the glass while Manhattan glowed below us like another universe entirely. You are certain? He asked. I remember details when I am nervous. He took one slow sip before answering. That man was Vincent Moreau. Who is he? Someone I have trusted for 11 years. I suddenly wished I had never noticed the ring at all. Damien stared out across the city for several seconds before speaking again. Vincent helped build my security network, he said calmly. He planned tonight's gala personally. Then he knew exactly where you would stand. Damien looked back at me sharply. Always moving. Always calculating 10 steps ahead. What else do you remember? He asked. I rubbed my bandaged hands nervously. Nothing useful. Try. The ballroom music, crystal glasses. Then another detail surfaced through the noise. He kept checking his watch. I said slowly. Over and over. Damien set his whiskey down untouched. What time? A little before 11. He glanced toward the antique clock above the fireplace automatically. Then realization darkened his expression. The explosion happened exactly at 11:14. Too warm. I wrapped my arms around myself and tried not to panic. Are people trying to kill you often? The question slipped out before I could stop it. To my surprise, Damien almost smiled again, a sadder version this time. Only on weekdays. I stared at him. That was supposed to make me feel better? No. He walked toward me slowly until only a few feet separated us. It was supposed to make you understand something. His voice lowered. Softer now. You are involved whether you want to be or not. I did not ask for this. Neither did I. The honesty in that answer caught me off guard. Before I could respond, someone knocked sharply on the suite doors. Damien opened them halfway while keeping his body between me and the hallway. A man in a charcoal suit leaned close and spoke quietly into his ear. I could not hear every word, only fragments. Missing vehicle. Security footage erased. Moreau unreachable. Damien's face hardened instantly. The softness vanished like it had never existed. Lock down the private exits, he ordered. Nobody leaves the building without clearance. The man nodded once and disappeared. Damien closed the doors slowly. What happened? I asked. He loosened his tie with visible restraint. Vincent Moreau disappeared 14 minutes after the explosion. So he really did it. Maybe. Damien walked toward the windows again. Or maybe someone wants me to believe he did. Thunder rolled across Manhattan in the distance. Traffic lights reflected across wet streets 40 floors below us. Everything suddenly felt far away from normal life. My apartment in Queens. My second job at the diner, community college classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All of it belonged to another version of me already. Damien turned back toward me slowly. You cannot go home tonight. Excuse me. If Vincent is involved, he knows you saw him. That does not mean he would come after me. Damien held my gaze without blinking. Marin. The way he said my name sent unease through my entire body. Men capable of betrayal do not leave witnesses behind. A chill crawled down my spine despite the warmth of the suite. I just wanted to survive my shift, I whispered. So did I. Then every light in the penthouse suddenly went out. Darkness changes people. It strips away performance. The second the penthouse lights died, Damien moved like someone who had lived through this before. His hand closed around my wrist instantly, pulling me away from the windows. Do not speak, he said quietly. The city outside still glowed through the rain, casting silver shadows across the suite. Somewhere beyond the doors, footsteps thundered through the hallway. My pulse hammered painfully against my ribs. Is this another attack? I whispered. Damien guided me behind the marble kitchen island without answering. The calm on his face terrified me more than panic would have. He crouched beside me, listening carefully while thunder rolled outside. Then came the sound of voices through the hallway. One voice shouted something sharp in Italian. Damien's expression hardened. Stay here, he ordered. Absolutely not. Even in darkness, they looked dangerously bright. You think hiding behind a kitchen counter sounds safer? I whispered. Compared to the alternative, yes. Before I could argue again, emergency lights flickered dimly across the suite in deep red waves. The soft glow transformed everything into shadows and blood-colored reflections. Damien stood slowly beside me. Listen carefully, he said. If anyone enters besides me, you lock yourself in the wine cellar. There is a wine cellar? Priorities, Marin. Despite everything. The dry sarcasm almost made me laugh. Another knock struck the suite doors, 3 sharp hits. A pause, then 2 more. Damien relaxed slightly. Security code. He murmured. He crossed the room carefully and opened the doors halfway. A younger man stepped inside immediately, rain dripping from his black coat. Backup generators are down, he said quietly. Somebody cut the building systems manually. Damien closed the doors behind him. How many exits remain secure? 2. The younger man finally noticed me standing near the kitchen. Who is she still doing here? She stays. The answer came so quickly that both of us looked at Damien in surprise. Any sign of Moreau? Nothing yet, but someone accessed the underground parking garage 11 minutes ago. Damien rubbed one hand slowly across his jaw. Exhaustion showed for the first time since I met him. Not weakness, just the weight of someone constantly preparing for betrayal. Double the security downstairs, he ordered. Nobody leaves without facial confirmation. The younger man hesitated before nodding. Understood. After he left, silence returned heavily between us. Rain hammered harder against the windows now. The storm outside had become violent enough to shake the glass occasionally. I folded my arms tightly across my chest. How are you this calm? Damien loosened the top button of his shirt slowly. Practice. That is not normal. Neither is trying to survive an explosion before dessert. Fair point. I looked around the massive suite again. The expensive art, the hidden exits, the reinforced doors. Nothing about this place resembled a home anymore. It looked like a fortress pretending to be luxury. Do you trust anyone? Damien stared toward the dark hallway for several seconds before answering. I used to. Something about the way he said it made my chest ache unexpectedly. I barely knew this man. Instead, I kept catching glimpses of loneliness beneath all that control. A soft buzzing sound suddenly broke the silence. Damien reached inside his jacket immediately and pulled out a second phone. Separate from his public one, he read the message silently. Then his entire expression changed. What? I asked. He lifted his eyes toward me slowly. Your apartment building lost power 10 minutes ago. How do you even know where I live? I told you already, he said calmly. I investigated your life. That is not comforting. Damien walked toward me until only inches separated us. Marin, listen carefully, his voice lowered. Someone disabled power to your building after learning you witnessed tonight's attack. Fear hit me so fast it stole my breath. My roommate is home. Damien grabbed his coat from the chair beside the fireplace immediately. Then we leave now. Leave? Whoever planned tonight expected chaos, he said while loading something metallic into his pocket. Chaos creates opportunities. And what opportunity are we talking about exactly? Damien opened the hidden weapons drawer beside the bar without looking away from me. The opportunity to silence the girl who remembers the wrong ring. Then somewhere deep below us, the hotel fire alarms finally began to scream. New York sounds different during a blackout. The city loses its confidence. Sirens echoed through Midtown while emergency lights painted the hotel hallways in flashing red shadows. Damien gripped my hand tightly as we moved through the private corridor behind the penthouse. Stay close to me, he said quietly. Trust me, that is not the problem right now. Despite everything, his mouth twitched slightly. We reached a hidden elevator tucked behind a mirrored wall near the service kitchen. Damien pressed his thumb against a scanner beside the panel. You have secret elevators, I asked breathlessly. I have trust issues. The elevator descended fast enough to make my stomach tighten. Damien stood beside me in complete silence, one hand inside his coat pocket the entire time. I tried not to think about what he was holding there. My roommate's name is Tessa, I said suddenly. She works mornings at Bellevue. Damien nodded once. How long has she lived with you? 2 years. Anyone else with apartment access? No. The elevator opened into a private underground garage lined with black SUVs and security vehicles. Men in dark coats moved quickly through the concrete structure while radios crackled nonstop around us. The atmosphere felt sharp, like everyone expected something terrible within minutes. Damien guided me toward a matte black SUV near the exit ramp. You stay in the vehicle no matter what happens, he ordered. You keep saying things like that without explaining anything. He opened the passenger door for me anyway, because panic slows people down. And what slows you down? The question escaped before I could stop it. Damien paused briefly beside the open door. Rainwater still clung to his dark hair, softening him in ways his expression never did. Regret, he answered quietly. Then he shut the door before I could respond. The drive through Manhattan felt unreal, streets flooded with flashing police lights and stalled traffic. Rain hammered against the windshield hard enough to blur the city into streaks of red and silver. Damien drove himself, no driver, no escort vehicle. That surprised me more than anything. You trust nobody enough to drive you? Correct. That sounds exhausting. It is, not awkward, just heavy. I studied his profile beneath the dashboard lights. Hands steady on the wheel despite the chaos surrounding us. He looked less like a crime boss right now and more like a man carrying something unbearably heavy alone. We reached Queens 20 minutes later. My apartment building stood dark against the rain-soaked street, every window black except one faint light near the stairwell. That light should not be on, I whispered. Damien parked across the street without answering. His attention locked onto the building instantly. Every muscle in his body seemed to sharpen at once. Stay here. Absolutely not. You argue with danger too casually. You brought danger to my apartment. Fair point. Damien exhaled once through his nose before stepping out into the rain. Cold water soaked through my uniform instantly while thunder rolled overhead. The neighborhood looked abandoned at this hour, empty sidewalks. Flickering traffic lights. Damien reached the front entrance first. The lobby doors stood slightly open. Tessa, no answer. Damien pushed the doors wider carefully while scanning the dark hallway beyond. Marin, his voice lowered dangerously. Behind me. Fear crawled up my spine as we climbed the narrow stairwell together. The emergency lights inside the building barely worked. Everything smelled like rainwater and old wiring. Apartment 4C waited at the end of the hallway. My apartment. The front door hung partially open. No, I whispered. Damien moved in front of me instantly, blocking my view inside. Stay here. Tessa is in there. That is exactly why you stay here. I hated that part of me felt safer when he used that tone. Damien disappeared inside the apartment silently, while my heartbeat pounded against my ribs hard enough to hurt. Then I heard his voice from inside. Marin. Something in his tone made my blood run cold instantly. I rushed past the doorway before he could stop me. The apartment looked untouched at first glance. Kitchen table. Coffee mugs beside the sink, but every photograph on the walls was gone. Every single one. Damien stood near the hallway holding something small in his hand. A silver ring with a black stone. Nothing feels more violating than a stranger standing inside your home, holding proof that somebody was already there before you. Rainwater dripped from Damien's coat onto my apartment floor while the silver ring rested heavily in his palm. Where is Tessa? I whispered. Damien scanned the apartment again carefully before answering. No signs of struggle. That does not mean she is safe. No, he admitted quietly. It does not. My chest tightened painfully as I looked around the living room. The framed pictures were gone from every shelf. Even the magnets on the refrigerator had disappeared. Somebody had removed every image containing me, like they wanted to erase evidence I existed here at all. Why would they take photographs? I asked shakily. Damien crouched beside the coffee table, studying faint scratches near the wood surface. Control, he said calmly. Fear works better when it feels personal. I moved toward the hallway quickly. Tessa, I pushed open her bedroom door with trembling hands. Bed still made. Lamp knocked sideways onto the floor. Her purse sat beside the dresser untouched. Damien appeared behind me seconds later. Do not touch anything. She would never leave without her bag. I know. You do not know anything about her. His expression stayed calm despite my panic. I know people take essentials when they leave voluntarily. My breathing grew uneven. This is my fault. No, they came here because of me. Damien stepped closer slowly, lowering his voice. Listen to me carefully. Marin, whoever did this planned tonight long before you existed in their problem. But fear has a way of making guilt feel logical. Thunder rattled the apartment windows hard enough to make me flinch. Damien noticed immediately. He noticed everything. You need to sit down. I am not fragile. No, he said quietly. You are exhausted. The frustrating part was he was right. My legs felt weak beneath me. My hands still burned under the bandages. Adrenaline had carried me through the last 2 hours. Now reality was catching up. Damien disappeared briefly into the kitchen. I heard cabinets opening before he returned holding a glass of water. Drink. You sound very comfortable giving orders. People survive longer when they follow them. My fingers brushed his accidentally. Dangerous men should not feel comforting. Damien walked slowly toward the empty picture frames lining the hallway wall. These were removed carefully, he murmured. No broken glass. Meaning they wanted time inside your apartment. You think they were waiting for us? Possibly. Before I could answer, his phone vibrated sharply inside his coat pocket. Damien glanced at the screen once before his entire expression darkened. What? He answered the call without taking his eyes off the apartment door. Speak. Silence stretched for several seconds while rain hammered against the windows. Then Damien's jaw tightened visibly. When another pause. Understood. Tell me. Your roommate used her hospital ID badge 32 minutes ago. Relief hit me so hard my knees nearly gave out. She is alive? At least 32 minutes ago. What are you not saying? Damien hesitated briefly before answering. She used the badge at a private medical clinic in Brooklyn. So, the clinic belongs to Vincent Moreau. No. Damien stepped toward the window, scanning the street below automatically. Either your roommate went there willingly, he said quietly, or somebody wanted us to know exactly where she is. I stared at him in disbelief. This feels insane. Welcome to my week. Normally, I might have laughed. Tonight, I could barely breathe. A sudden sound echoed faintly from somewhere above us. Floorboards creaking. Damien reacted instantly. His posture sharpened. Every trace of exhaustion vanished from his face. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. He nodded once. Another creak followed, directly above the apartment ceiling this time. Slow footsteps. My upstairs neighbor had moved out 2 months ago. Damien reached inside his coat, quietly, while keeping his eyes locked upward. "Marin," his voice dropped lower than I had ever heard before. "Get behind me." Then the apartment lights flickered once, twice, and someone upstairs started walking toward the fire escape. Rain drummed against the fire escape, loud enough to hide footsteps. That realization hit me 1 second before the metal ladder outside my kitchen window rattled softly. Damien moved instantly. One arm pushed me behind him while the other reached inside his coat. "Bedroom," he ordered quietly. "Now. I am not leaving you alone." "Marin," something in his voice stopped my argument immediately. Not anger, real fear. I backed toward the hallway while the fire escape creaked again outside the apartment. Careful movement. Whoever stood out there knew exactly how not to make noise. Damien crossed silently toward the kitchen window, like this was normal for him. That thought unsettled me more than the storm outside. Shadows stretched across the walls in uneven waves while thunder rolled overhead. Then came a soft knock against the glass. 3 taps. Damien froze beside the kitchen counter. "Do not move," he whispered. Another 3 taps echoed through the apartment. Not aggressive, not frantic. I saw Damien's expression change slightly. Confusion replacing tension for half a second. Then a woman's voice came softly through the rain. "Damien." Relief crossed his face so quickly I almost missed it. He unlocked the window immediately and pulled it upward. A woman climbed inside from the fire escape, wearing a soaked black trench coat and dark jeans. Water dripped from her blonde hair onto my kitchen floor while she caught her breath. "Your security downstairs is terrible," she muttered. Damien actually looked annoyed. "You climbed 6 flights during a storm to tell me that?" "I climbed 6 flights because somebody followed me from Brooklyn." "Brooklyn?" The woman's sharp blue eyes landed on me for the first time. Dangerous in a quieter way than Damien. "You must be Marin." "How do you know my name?" "Because half of Manhattan is currently looking for you." Damien shut the window firmly behind her. "Start explaining." The woman removed a flash drive from her coat pocket carefully. "I found this inside Moreau's clinic office." Damien took it immediately. "What is on it?" "Patient records. And photographs." "Photographs of what?" The woman hesitated. Damien noticed instantly. "Celine." "Photographs of Marin." She admitted quietly. Cold spread through my body, so fast it hurt. "What?" Damien plugged the flash drive into a laptop hidden inside the kitchen cabinet wall. Hidden computers too, of course. The screen illuminated his face in pale blue light, while rain continued hammering outside. Then the first photograph appeared, me leaving work 3 weeks ago. Another showed me entering my apartment building. Another captured me walking beside Tessa near a coffee truck in Queens. "No," I whispered. Damien's jaw tightened visibly while image after image appeared across the screen. Timestamps. Someone had been tracking me long before tonight. "This started months ago," Celine murmured quietly. I stared at the photographs in disbelief. "Why would anyone follow me?" Damien opened another file silently. His entire body went still. "What?" I asked shakily. He turned the laptop slowly toward me. A scanned newspaper clipping filled the screen. 15 years old, yellowed edges. Local accountant disappears after federal investigation. Beneath the article sat a photograph of a man smiling beside courthouse steps. Dark hair. "That is impossible." Damien looked at me carefully. "You know him." I could barely speak. "That is my father." Nothing else existed for several seconds. "Your father died when you were 8. Damien said slowly. "Car accident." I whispered automatically. "My mother told me he died in a car accident." Celine folded her arms tightly. "According to these records, your father worked for Vincent Moreau before he disappeared." Damien's gaze sharpened dangerously. "Doing what?" Celine hesitated. "Financial laundering." "No, my father was an accountant." Damien stared at the article silently before speaking. "Those are often the same thing." I backed away from the laptop immediately. "You are wrong." "Marin." "You are wrong." My voice cracked hard enough to embarrass me instantly. Damien stepped toward me carefully, like approaching something fragile. I know this feels impossible. Do not tell me how this feels. Emotion finally broke through my panic. I spent my entire life believing my father died a good man. Damien stopped inches away from me. Rainwater still clung to the collar of his black coat, while city lights flickered faintly behind him. Sometimes, he said quietly, good people disappear because they learn dangerous things. Then someone pounded violently against the apartment door downstairs. The pounding downstairs sounded too heavy to belong to neighbors. Whoever stood outside the building was not trying to hide anymore. Damien closed the laptop immediately while Celine moved toward the kitchen window with sharp, practiced movements. How many entrances? Front lobby and alley fire escape. I answered automatically. Damien's eyes lifted toward me. Roof access. Locked from the inside since winter. Another violent bang echoed through the building. Closer this time. That was the stairwell door. I whispered. Damien slipped the flash drive into his coat pocket. Then we leave now. Through the fire escape, Celine asked. Damien nodded once. Two exposed downstairs. Rain crashed harder against the apartment windows, while thunder rattled the old building again. Everything felt unreal. My father, the photographs, Tessa missing. None of it fit together anymore. Damien stepped toward me carefully. Marin, can you move? I almost laughed at the question. I pushed a Mafia boss off a rooftop 4 hours ago. I think I can handle stairs. To my surprise, Damien actually smiled this time. But real? Good, he murmured. Because this next part will be unpleasant. Celine unlocked the kitchen window while cold rain swept immediately into the apartment. Wind howled through the fire escape like the city itself was warning us to run. Another loud crash shook the hallway outside my apartment door. Damien's expression hardened instantly. Move. Celine climbed out first with smooth confidence. I followed carefully onto the slick metal platform while Damien remained inside the apartment listening. Damien, I whispered urgently. He looked toward the front door one final time before climbing outside beside me. Seconds later, my apartment door burst open behind us. Damien grabbed my hand without hesitation and pulled me upward through the rain. Do not look back. The fire escape stairs rattled beneath our weight, while cold water soaked through my clothes completely. Lightning flashed above Queens in violent white bursts. We climbed 3 floors before Damien suddenly stopped. What? I whispered breathlessly. He tilted his head slightly, listening through the storm. Then he looked toward the alley below. Black SUVs rolled silently onto the street beside the building. They found the exits, Celine muttered above us. Damien's grip tightened around my wrist. Roof. We climbed the final staircase fast enough to burn my lungs. The rooftop door slammed open against the wind as we stumbled into freezing rain. Water flooded across cracked concrete beneath flashing city lights. The skyline looked ghostly through the storm. Damien scanned the rooftop immediately, while Celine checked the opposite side. There, she shouted over the wind. A second fire escape connected to the neighboring building across a narrow alley gap. Maybe 6 feet apart. Absolutely not. Damien looked at me sharply. You can make it. You clearly overestimate my athletic abilities. Another rooftop door burst open behind us downstairs. Damien stepped closer until rain streamed down his face inches from mine. Marin, his voice cut cleanly through the chaos around us. Look at me. I forced myself to meet his eyes. You trusted me once already tonight. Lightning flashed behind him, illuminating sharp cheekbones and rainwater dripping from dark hair. Dangerous men should not look beautiful during storms. It felt unfair. Trust me again, he said quietly, but somehow his voice steadied me anyway. Damien jumped first. His shoes landed smoothly against the neighboring fire escape platform. Then he turned immediately and reached one hand toward me through the rain. Come here. The shouting downstairs grew louder. My pulse hammered hard enough to make my vision blur. Marin, Celine snapped sharply. Now. I ran before fear could stop me. The jump lasted maybe 1 second, long enough for panic to hit fully halfway across. Then Damien caught me against him firmly before I slipped on the wet platform. His arm wrapped around my waist automatically to steady me. My breath caught painfully for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Damien looked down at me for half a second too long. Rain dripped from his eyelashes while city lights reflected faintly in his green eyes. Then a gunshot cracked somewhere behind us. Damien pulled me down instantly against the metal platform while glass exploded from the rooftop door we had just escaped through. People imagine fear as screaming and chaos. Real fear sounds smaller. Glass scattering across concrete. Damien's body covering mine before I could even react. We hit the metal platform hard enough to rattle the entire fire escape. My cheek pressed against his soaked coat while thunder exploded somewhere above Manhattan. "Stay down," he ordered quietly. His arm remained wrapped around my waist protectively while another shot shattered the rooftop light behind us. Celine crouched near the ladder below, shouting something through the storm I could barely hear. Damien finally lifted his head slightly, eyes scanning the rooftop we escaped from. "2 shooters," he muttered. "Maybe 3, my pulse hammered painfully beneath his hand. "You counted that already? You learn fast when people dislike you professionally. Even now," his voice stayed calm. Like panic belonged to other people, Damien looked down at me briefly. Rainwater slid across his jaw while city lights flickered faintly behind him. "Can you climb? You keep asking me difficult questions during traumatic situations." "I will take that as a yes." Another shot cracked overhead. Damien moved instantly, pulling me toward the lower ladder while shielding me with his body the entire time. He had not hidden once since this started, every dangerous moment tonight. He moved toward the threat first. "Go." Celine snapped from below. I climbed downward carefully while rain turned the metal slippery beneath my shoes. Damien stayed above me the entire time. The alley below looked almost empty except for rainwater flooding near dumpsters and old brick walls glowing beneath emergency lights. Celine jumped the final 6 feet first. Damien followed seconds later before helping me down beside them. "Vehicle?" Celine asked breathlessly. Damien shook his head once. "Too exposed now." Thunder rolled across Queens again, while distant sirens echoed through flooded streets nearby. Everything smelled like wet concrete and smoke drifting from Manhattan. "So what is the plan?" I asked. Damien glanced toward the alley entrance carefully. "We disappear." "That sounds suspiciously vague." "That is because the original plan exploded 4 hours ago." Celine adjusted the hood of her coat while checking her phone. "I still have one safe location left in Brooklyn." Damien's expression darkened immediately. "No, we do not have better options. It is compromised." They stared at each other silently for several seconds. Something unspoken passed between them. "You trust her?" I realized quietly. Damien glanced toward me briefly. "Celine saved my life once." Celine snorted softly. "Twice if we count Milan." "We do not count Milan." Despite the danger surrounding us, something almost warm passed between them. It reminded me suddenly that Damien existed outside tonight's chaos. He had history, people who knew him before all this. Then headlights swept across the alley entrance. Damien grabbed my wrist instantly and pulled all 3 of us behind a delivery truck parked beside the curb. My heart nearly stopped. Black SUV, same kind from the hotel garage. The vehicle slowed near the alley mouth before stopping completely. Nobody spoke. Rain hammered against the truck hard enough to shake the metal around us. Damien's hand remained firmly around mine, protective in ways my brain refused to process properly. The SUV doors finally opened. Men stepped out wearing dark coats and silver rings. "Moro's people," Celine whispered. Damien's eyes sharpened dangerously. "Stay behind me." One of the men held up a photograph beneath the streetlight. Even through the rain, I recognized my own face instantly. Panic surged through me cold and sharp. "They are hunting me." Damien looked toward me briefly. "Yes, not cruel, not cold, just honest." Another man near the SUV spoke quietly into his phone before pointing directly toward our alley. "They saw us." Damien's entire posture changed at once. Every trace of softness vanished behind something darker. "Run," he ordered calmly. We sprinted through the flooded alley while footsteps echoed behind us. My lungs burned almost immediately from exhaustion and cold air. Celine disappeared around the corner first while Damien stayed directly beside me the entire time. "Left," he ordered sharply. We turned onto a narrower side street, glowing beneath broken neon signs and flickering laundromat lights. Then my shoe slipped hard against flooded pavement. Before I hit the ground, Damien caught me against his chest with both arms. Not from fear this time. His heartbeat slammed steady beneath soaked black fabric while rain streamed down both our faces. For one impossible second, the city disappeared around us completely. Then Damien looked over my shoulder suddenly. "Marin," he said quietly. "Do not turn around." I already knew somebody was standing behind us. The human body recognizes danger before the mind accepts it. I felt it instantly in the way Damien's arms tightened around me. Lethal if necessary. Rain poured down the narrow Brooklyn street, while neon signs flickered weakly across flooded pavement. I kept my back against Damien's chest and forced myself not to turn around. Not rushed, not nervous. "Damien," a familiar male voice called softly through the storm. Damien went completely still beside me. "That is impossible," Celine whispered from several feet away. Vincent Moreau stood beneath the rain wearing a charcoal overcoat and black leather gloves. Silver hair slicked back perfectly despite the storm. The same navy tie from the gala still hung neatly beneath his coat. He looked untouched by the chaos destroying everyone else's lives tonight. "You," I whispered. Vincent's eyes settled on me calmly. "Marin Bellamy." Damien slowly moved in front of me without taking his eyes off the older man. "You should be dead," Vincent smiled faintly. "People say that surprisingly often." Thunder cracked overhead, while black SUVs idled near the far intersection behind him. More men waited there. Damien's posture sharpened further. "You planted the bomb." Vincent tilted his head slightly. "No." The answer came too quickly, too smoothly. "Then why disappear?" Damien demanded. Vincent's expression changed subtly, not fear. Something closer to disappointment. "Because somebody needed me blamed before midnight." Nothing about tonight made sense anymore. Damien glanced toward the waiting SUVs briefly before returning his attention forward. "You expect me to believe this?" "I expect you to survive long enough to learn the truth." Rainwater dripped steadily from Vincent's gloves onto the pavement, while sirens echoed somewhere distant across Brooklyn. The city felt strangely empty around us now, like the storm itself had swallowed every witness. "You tracked Marin for months," Damien said coldly. "Why?" Vincent finally looked directly at me again. Something softened in his expression unexpectedly. "Recognition, maybe. Because her father asked me to." The world tilted sideways for one impossible second. "What?" My voice barely came out above the rain. Damien's head snapped toward Vincent instantly. "Explain carefully." Vincent exhaled slowly before speaking. "Nathan Bellamy disappeared 15 years ago because he uncovered financial records connected to federal corruption. My father was not corrupt." "No," Vincent agreed quietly. "That was the problem, my own heartbeat roaring inside my ears." Damien looked toward me briefly before facing Vincent again. "Start making sense." Vincent stepped one pace closer carefully. "Nathan discovered names tied to offshore accounts, federal investigators." Lightning flashed behind him in violent white streaks. People with enough power to erase entire families. "My mother told me he died in a car accident." Vincent's eyes darkened with something resembling regret. "Your mother believed that lie because Nathan wanted her alive." Damien folded his arms tightly across his chest. "And where exactly is Nathan Bellamy now?" Vincent hesitated. That terrified me more than anything else tonight. "Vincent," Damien warned sharply. "Alive," he answered finally. My knees nearly gave out beneath me. Damien caught my elbow immediately before I lost balance completely. "No," I whispered shakily. "No, that is impossible." Vincent reached slowly inside his coat pocket. Damien moved instantly in front of me again. "Careful." Vincent ignored the warning and removed a faded photograph carefully protected inside plastic. Then he held it out toward me through the rain. My hands trembled as I took it. A man stood beside a fishing boat somewhere tropical. Older now, gray at the temples, but unmistakable, my father. My breath shattered painfully in my chest. "He has been hiding under federal protection for 15 years, Vincent said quietly, waiting until the right evidence surfaced. Tears mixed instantly with rain across my face. I hated crying in front of strangers, especially dangerous ones. Damien noticed anyway. Of course he did. "Why tell us this now?" Damien asked coldly. Vincent looked toward the black SUVs waiting at the intersection. "Because the people hunting Marin tonight are not mine." Every muscle in Damien's body tensed instantly. "Then whose are they?" Vincent's expression hardened completely for the first time. "The same people who tried to kill you at the gala." Thunder exploded overhead again, while headlights suddenly flooded the street behind us. 3 more black SUVs turned the corner fast. Vincent's face changed immediately. Too late, he muttered. Damien grabbed my wrist hard enough to pull me behind him again. Get down. The first SUV doors opened before the vehicles even fully stopped. Then someone inside shouted one sentence that froze my blood completely. Take the girl alive. The moment someone called me the girl, I stopped feeling like a person. I became a target. Damien's arm locked around my waist instantly, while headlights flooded the rain-soaked street in violent white beams. Men stepped from the SUVs wearing dark coats and expressionless faces. Not rushed, not emotional. That frightened me more than shouting ever could. Behind the truck, Damien ordered sharply. Vincent moved first, pulling Celine toward the narrow alley beside the laundromat, while Damien guided me backward through freezing rain. My legs barely kept up anymore. Everything hurt. My hands, my lungs, my head spinning with impossible truths. My father was alive. Somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, part of me still could not process it. Marin, Damien's voice cut through my panic immediately. Stay with me. I realized then he had repeated that phrase all night. Not stay quiet, not stay hidden, stay with me. Thunder cracked overhead, while another SUV blocked the far end of the street. Damien cursed softly under his breath for the first time since I met him. We are trapped, Celine muttered. Vincent looked strangely calm despite the vehicles surrounding us. Not yet. One of the men stepped forward beneath the streetlight. Broad shoulders, silver ring visible against black gloves. Mr. Valenti, he called calmly through the rain. This does not concern you. Damien laughed once under his breath. That is usually when things concern me most. His attention shifted toward me instead. Marin Bellamy, he said evenly. Come with us peacefully and nobody else gets hurt. Damien moved slightly in front of me again, without hesitation. You keep speaking like you have options, the man smiled faintly. I have 12. More headlights appeared at the far intersection. Additional vehicles, more people. The city suddenly felt too small to escape. Celine stepped closer beside Vincent. Damien, she said quietly. You cannot fight this many. I know. His answer came calm enough to chill me. He already had another plan. Vincent studied the street carefully before speaking. They need Marin alive. Damien's eyes narrowed slightly. Meaning they will hesitate before risking her life publicly. This conversation is becoming exhausting. Then several red laser dots appeared suddenly across the wet pavement around us. Damien's body tightened beside mine. Snipers, Celine whispered. Rain poured harder while the lasers danced across concrete and brick walls. One settled briefly against Damien's chest before shifting away again. The message felt clear enough. You should leave, I whispered suddenly. Damien looked at me sharply. No, they want me, not you. Marin. Vincent suddenly stepped forward into the street. Wait, Damien cursed quietly. What are you doing? Vincent ignored him completely. You want the girl alive because Nathan Bellamy hid something before disappearing. The silver-ringed man remained silent. Vincent continued anyway. If Marin dies, the location dies with her. What location? Vincent looked back toward me carefully. Your father left evidence. Damien's expression darkened instantly. You never mentioned evidence. Because somebody inside your organization leaked information tonight, Vincent snapped. That is why they moved early. Lightning flashed violently overhead, while tension thickened across the flooded street. The silver-ringed man finally smiled. Mr. Moreau, he said softly. You always were smarter than loyal. Vincent's face hardened completely. And you always underestimated accountants. The man lifted one hand slightly toward his people. Take them. Everything exploded into movement at once. Damien grabbed me hard and shoved me behind the laundromat corner while Celine dragged Vincent toward the alley exit. Shouting echoed through the storm from every direction. Tires screeched against flooded pavement. My pulse hammered wildly while Damien pressed me against the brick wall protectively. Listen carefully, he said urgently. Rainwater dripped from his dark hair directly onto my face. If we get separated, you find Celine. No, Marin. I am not leaving you. His expression softened for one impossible second. Like those words affected him more than they should have. Then the brick wall beside us suddenly exploded with shattered concrete as bullets struck inches away. Damien turned instantly, covering my body with his own while debris scattered across the alley. His breathing stayed steady against my forehead. Then he whispered something so quietly, I almost thought the storm imagined it for me. I am not losing you too. Some words split your life into before and after. I am not losing you too. Damien had whispered it like a confession dragged from somewhere deep and damaged inside him. Rain exploded across the alley while more shots cracked against brick and pavement around us. Damien kept one arm around me protectively while guiding me deeper between buildings. Move, he ordered sharply. My lungs burned from exhaustion and cold air, but I forced my legs forward anyway. Behind us, tires screeched and men shouted through the storm. The city felt like it was collapsing around one impossible secret. Celine appeared near the alley exit beside Vincent. Subway in trance, she shouted. 2 blocks. Damien nodded once. Go. We ran through flooded side streets glowing beneath flickering deli signs and broken streetlights. Rainwater soaked through my shoes completely while thunder rattled every window around us. Damien never let go of my hand once, not even while checking intersections, not even while scanning rooftops. Like losing physical contact with me had become unacceptable somehow. We finally reached the subway entrance hidden beside a closed pharmacy. Vincent pulled open the gate first while Celine disappeared down the stairs. Damien stopped suddenly before following. Wait, I heard it too then. Distant at first, growing louder quickly, Vincent looked upward through the rain. They found us already. Damien's expression darkened. No, that is Federal Aviation. Federal, my father's secret. The offshore accounts. Black SUVs screamed around the corner seconds later. Too fast, too close. Damien pushed me behind the subway entrance wall immediately, while Vincent cursed under his breath. Men flooded from the vehicles wearing tactical jackets marked with Federal Bureau of Investigation across the chest. Federal agents, Celine whispered. Damien looked furious instead of relieved. No badges displayed, he muttered. Too fast deployment. One of the agents stepped forward holding a megaphone beneath the pouring rain. Damien Valeni, he shouted. Release the girl immediately. Damien laughed once under his breath. Interesting phrasing. What does that mean? His eyes stayed fixed on the street ahead. It means they are not here to rescue you. Vincent's face hardened completely. They know about Nathan. Another voice echoed through the megaphone. Marin Bellamy is under federal protection. Surrender now. I froze. Federal protection. My father had spent 15 years hiding from these people. Damien slowly turned toward me. Rain streamed down his face, while flashing lights painted shadows across his green eyes. Listen carefully, he said quietly. If they separate us, you say nothing. Damien. Nothing, he repeated firmly. Something about his expression terrified me more than the armed men outside. Not fear for himself, fear for me. The tactical agents began spreading across the street strategically while helicopter lights swept through the storm overhead. This is bad, Celine whispered unnecessarily. Vincent looked toward Damien sharply. You still have the drive. Damien touched his coat pocket once. Yes. Then they cannot take you alive either. Either. Damien ignored the question completely. One of the agents moved closer through the rain while raising empty hands slowly. Mr. Valeni, he called calmly. This does not need to end badly. Damien's expression turned almost amused. Men carrying rifles should avoid the word calmly. The agent stopped several feet away. You are protecting someone tied to active federal investigations. Then show me your warrant. Damien's jaw tightened instantly. Exactly. The helicopters lowered slightly overhead, flooding the entire street with blinding white light. I shielded my eyes instinctively while rain lashed against my face. Then Vincent suddenly grabbed my arm. Marin, for the first time tonight, he seemed afraid. Truly afraid. Your father hid evidence proving federal officials worked with organized crime. What? That is why they erased him, Vincent said urgently. And now they think you know where he hid it. I do not know anything. Vincent's expression softened unexpectedly. You do? What are you talking about? Before he could answer, Damien suddenly pulled me hard against him as a flashbang exploded near the alley entrance. White light swallowed everything. My ears rang violently while shouting erupted around us. Damien's arms locked around me protectively through the disorientation. Run, Celine screamed somewhere nearby. Shapes moved through smoke and rain while helicopter lights spun wildly overhead. Then somebody grabbed my shoulder and ripped me away from Damien's arms. I heard him shout my name for the first time all night with real panic in his voice. Marin. The last thing I saw before darkness swallowed the alley was Damien fighting through smoke, toward me, like losing me was not an option he could survive. Then everything disappeared. When I opened my eyes again, silence greeted me first. No sirens, no helicopters, just the low hum of an air conditioner somewhere above me. Soft sheets brushed against my skin as I sat upright too quickly. Sunlight spilled across polished hardwood floors through enormous windows overlooking the ocean. I stumbled out of bed barefoot and crossed the room. Palm trees swayed outside beneath bright blue skies. Waves rolled against white sand below a cliffside property that looked more expensive than the entire Manhattan hotel rooftop combined. Confusion hit me hard enough to make my head ache. "You should not stand up that fast." Damien's voice froze me instantly. He stood near the doorway wearing a black button-down with rolled sleeves and exhausted eyes that looked like they had not closed in days. Relief slammed into me before anger could. "You kidnapped me?" Damien almost smiled. "Technically, I rescued you first." "Where are we?" "The Amalfi Coast." "Italy." "Yes." He crossed the room slowly, watching me carefully like he still expected me to disappear somehow. The people in Brooklyn were not federal agents. I guessed that part. Damien stopped beside the windows overlooking the ocean. Sunlight softened the sharpness of his face for the first time since I met him. "They work for men connected to your father's investigation." "What happened after the alley?" His expression darkened. "Vincent helped Celine create a diversion." "And Vincent?" Damien looked toward the ocean before speaking quietly. "He stayed behind." The answer hurt more than I expected. Vincent had lied to me for years without even knowing me. Yet somehow he still died protecting me. "Celine?" "Safe." Damien finally looked back toward me again. "You were unconscious for 18 hours. 18 hours, my entire old life felt impossibly far away already. My apartment, community college, double shifts at the hotel. All of it belonged to another girl now. Why bring me here?" I whispered. Damien's jaw tightened slightly. "Because New York stopped being safe for you. And Italy is. For now." He reached inside his pocket slowly before holding out a small silver key. I stared at it in confusion. "What is this?" "A safety deposit box." "Okay. Your father left it under your name 15 years ago. You found him." Damien nodded once. "Yesterday morning." Emotion hit so suddenly I could barely breathe around it. "He is alive?" "Yes." Damien stepped closer carefully. "Marin, why would he stay away that long?" My voice cracked despite trying to stop it. "Because he believed distance would keep you alive." I turned away toward the ocean quickly, embarrassed by the tears falling anyway. Damien remained silent behind me for several seconds. Then his voice lowered. "Softer now. I understand that choice more than you think." Something about those words made me look back at him slowly. Exhaustion lined every part of his face now that the danger had paused. Not weakness, just a man carrying too much alone for too long. "You almost died because of me," I whispered. Damien's expression changed instantly. "No, Damien. No." He stepped closer until only inches separated us beside the windows. "You saved my life before you even knew my name." The ocean breeze moved softly through the open balcony doors while sunlight warmed the room around us. For the first time since the rooftop explosion, nobody was chasing us. Nobody shouting, nobody hiding. Damien looked at me like he still could not believe I existed at all. "Back in Brooklyn," I said quietly. "You told me you were not losing me too." Something dark flickered behind his eyes immediately. "Old grief. My younger sister died 5 years ago," he admitted softly. "Wrong place, wrong people." Suddenly, every protective instinct made terrible sense. Damien exhaled slowly before continuing. "I spent years becoming someone dangerous enough that nobody could ever hurt the people I loved again. Then you pushed me off a balcony and ruined everything." Despite myself, I laughed softly through tears. Damien's mouth finally curved into a real smile. Warm this time, beautiful enough to hurt. He reached up carefully and brushed rain-dried hair away from my face with surprising gentleness. "The worst part? I think meeting you was the first good thing that ever happened to me." Then somewhere beyond the balcony, church bells echoed softly across the Italian coastline, while I realized the most dangerous man I had ever met was also the first person who ever made me feel completely safe.